Welcome to the Mission Matters. The Mission Matters is a partnership between 1615 and Missie, who have a shared passion to mobilize God's people to be a part of His mission. The Mission Matters is hosted by Matthew Ellison, president of 1615, and Ted Esler, president of Missie. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And now, here are your hosts, Matthew Ellison and Ted Esler.
Well, hello and welcome once again to the podcast. I am Matthew Ellison, and of course, if you are a regular listener or viewer, you know that I am joined by my good friend and co-host, Ted Esler. Ted, salutations, my friend.
Hey, how you doing, Matthew?
You know, I've said that line so many times. I'm doing well. I've said that line so many times, my good friend, Ted Esler. I got to tell you, it feels disingenuous, but brother, it's not. You're a good friend and partner in ministry, but I've said that hundreds of times now, and it's like my standard opening, but I really appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you too. Group hug here.
Yeah. Well, want to start off with a random question like we always do. And this is a bit of a serendipity. I came up with this question a few days ago, and lo and behold, I discovered that today is National French Fry Day. I don't know if you saw that, but legitimately, now by the time people watch this, it will not be French Fry Day. So
every day is French Fry Day, Matthew.
Oh, there we go. So this is, what we call the softball question, but this is actually a pretty heavy question, I think. What's your condiment of choice for French fries? And I'll begin. As a kid, it's always ketchup, right? Kids love ketchup with their fries. But then I travel as an older man to the Netherlands, and I discover the wonder of eating mayonnaise with your French fries. And it is pretty remarkable. You mix a little bit of ketchup in there. And if you really want something special, you do curry ketchup and mayonnaise with your fries. So that is my condiment of choice. How about you, Ted?
Well, mine is a little bit odd, actually. So, we lived in Canada for a number of years. And when we first moved there, here in the US, we have Kentucky Fried Chicken. And Kentucky Fried Chicken is best with mashed potatoes and gravy. And lo and behold, the first time we went into a Kentucky Fried Chicken in Canada, we were shocked that they do not serve mashed potatoes at all. In fact, they looked at us like we were from Mars when I asked about mashed potatoes with my Kentucky Fried Chicken. So they gave us French fries with gravy. And I'm telling you, they got poutine, which also adds cheese, but just French fries with that Kentucky Fried Chicken gravy on it, I'm telling you, nothing beats it. It's the best. And by the way, Kentucky Fried Chicken is one of those franchises which is always better outside the United States versus inside. If you have Kentucky Fried Chicken in Asia, where it's really hot and spicy, it's incredible. So just a pro tip if you're traveling and you're looking for some chicken.
That's great. I'll keep it in mind.
Well, how about Haije? What's your favorite condiment on French fries?
So if you go to the Netherlands, we have Kentucky Fried Chicken also. So there's a Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant about 12 kilometers from my house. So come to the Netherlands. No, I think on my French fries, I think the best is pinda sauce. It is like peanut butter sauce. I don't know if you have that in the United States. It comes from foreign countries where the Netherlands was part of.
Sounds like,
but you can also combine it. Again.
I said it sounds like an Indonesian influence.
Into Indonesian influence, yes. It's and then you can combine it also not only ketchup with mayonnaise, but also peanut butter sauce with mayonnaise and on your fried chicken. It's really good. So if you come to the Netherlands, try that one.
All right. How about Jiska? What do you like?
Well, you would expect me to say mayonnaise because I'm from the Netherlands, but I do like mayonnaise, but I love barbecue sauce even more. So for me, it's barbecue sauce.
All right. Well, I like that too. Well, let's get kicked off with some introductions if we could. So, Haije, why don't we start with you? Could you just tell us a little bit who you are and what your ministry is? We're going to get to the primary topic in just a minute, but why don't we have you go first, Haije?
I'm Haije Bergstra from the Netherlands, served in Spain, also in Europe, as a church planter, but also as a teacher, theology teacher of church planters. At the moment, I'm a coordinator of a missions program at a Christian college in the Netherlands. So a lot of students of mine serving within the Netherlands or also outside the Netherlands. And also I'm part of Missie 1A, coaching churches in reaching out to unreached people groups. So that's a part of what I do.
Okay, and Jiska?
Yeah, I'm Jiska Chin-A-Teh, and that is because I'm married to a guy from Surinamese Chinese background, and that's why I have my name Chin-A-Teh, and I need to spell that for the rest of my life. So that's a choice I made when marrying him. But it gives me a great opportunity every time someone asks, "Where does your name come from?" to give some more background of where I'm actually, well, I wasn't born there. I was born in the Netherlands, but I was raised in Suriname in South America on the mission field because my parents are missionaries, and I'm a TCK, third culture kid. And currently I'm the coordinator of the missions network here in the Netherlands for the Dutch Evangelical Alliance.
Well, we are here today to talk about something that I am incredibly excited about. I know Ted is as well. It's called the No Choice Network. And so maybe one of you could let our audience know what it's all about, how it got started, and who's a part of it.
I can explain something about the start of the No Choice Network. A few years ago, several missions organizations came together to think about the future of missions. We saw that missions is changing, like Bob Dylan said, times are changing, and that's also for organizations in the Netherlands the case. So they thought about the theology of missions, but also the practical side of it. And one of the groups was a group that focused on unreached people groups, and from that group came the idea to start up a new network, and that was the No Choice Network. So maybe Jiska can explain a little bit more about that, because it was started from Missie Nederland because they were coordinating the network from the beginning.
Yeah, at this point, the No Choice Network has about 18 different organizations that are joined. And it started as a campaign, actually, to raise awareness for the unreached people groups. So the idea was to start a media campaign and just create materials, send information to churches to raise awareness. But then it turned into more of a network and a collaboration for now 18 organizations. And every time that we have a seminar somewhere or we share the story of No Choice, other organizations want to join. So we say at this point we have 18, and maybe next year we have the doubles. We don't know. But it's very important to focus on the collaboration part because we don't have our own mission goal as organizations, but really the No Choice joined goal. And that is very important for us.
So Jiska, I wonder if you could tell us, I mean, it may be obvious to our viewers and listeners, but tell us about No Choice. Why the name?
Why the name? Well, it basically comes from people who have no choice to choose for Jesus at this point in their life, because they have no one in their area, in their neighborhood, their friends, family who is a Christian. So they literally have no choice to choose for Jesus. Of course, there are other ways that God can make himself known. But he chose us and put it in the Bible as a task for all of us Christians to share the gospel. But if you have no one in your area, no one in your neighborhood who is a Christian, then it's not very likely that you will even hear the gospel. So you have no choice to choose for Jesus.
So those are kind of loaded terms in American culture, because you're basically saying you're pro-choice. And in our context, that has a little bit different meaning.
Yep.
It's a awesome vision. And I think it does explain well the plight that the unreached are in. How receptive are churches in the Netherlands to your message?
Well, I would say at this point it's very challenging to reach churches with the theme of missions, global missions, overseas missions. But if you have a church, part of our network, that is focused on missions, and they hear about No Choice, they are overwhelmed just because they are unaware of the numbers. They are not aware that about 40% of civilization has no choice to choose for Jesus.
Yeah, and I think that lack of that knowledge makes churches change their mind. If they hear about these numbers, when we speak to people, they just don't know that this is the case, that a lot of people are not able to connect with another Christian. I've never heard of Christianity, of spoke about the gospel. So one of the challenges we see is that they lack knowledge. So in that way, we try to inform people about the spread of the gospel in the world and where unreached people groups are and how they can be reached. So yes, that's some of the goals we have, and that's what we want to do when we talk to churches.
I think even here in the United States, we see a lot of unawareness. There's a lack of understanding about who the unreached are. I've often talked to folks at churches and they talk about their neighbors being unreached. Folks they work with are being unreached. And I heard a pastor say once, those people aren't unreached because you're their neighbor. They have access to the gospel. All you need to do is cross the street. When we're talking about unreached people, we're talking about people who couldn't hear the gospel if they wanted to, as you guys have described. These are people with absolutely no choice. They're the gospel destitute. And I personally think this is the greatest injustice of our day, is that 40% of the world knows nothing of our King and Savior, and they're headed to an eternity apart from him, and no one's telling them. So I just commend you guys for the incredible work you're doing in creating awareness about these people that are cut off from the light of the gospel. So we know that there's a rich missions history in Holland and in other parts of Western Europe. Are you guys hopeful that the church in Holland will once again take its place in God's plan? I mean, I'm assuming you are. You're behind the No Choice Network, but tell me how you're feeling about this. You guys have been doing this for a while now.
Shall I explain a little bit more, and Jiska will fill in the blanks?
That's great.
I guess.
Excellent.
I think when I see the church in the Netherlands, I see a church that is beginning to reinvent itself. You know, like someone said the other day, he said the Netherlands is like a secular island in Western Europe. So the Statistical Bureau of the Netherlands came out with a report in spring of this year, and it said that 50%, more than 50% of the people in the Netherlands are not believing. So the other half, or smaller half, is believing, but not only Christian but also other faiths. So we're living in a country that is more unbelievable than they believe in a God. So that has consequences of the church, and some churches are more inward focused and less outward focused. So that means that some churches, if we talk about missions, lack resources, also financial resources to send out people. On the other hand, or let me say also that the coronavirus, I don't know if that's happened in the United States also, but the coronavirus didn't help much. A lot of people didn't return to church after the coronavirus. And some churches are struggling with that. On the other hand, what I see also is that the people who are part of the church are more radical and take their faith more serious. And we see in that part of the church a change, a renewal. They start to plant churches in the Netherlands. they focus on unreached people groups. So even there's a smaller group, they're more active and take missions more serious. So yes, there's a smaller group doing the job, if you can say it like that, but a smaller group is taking it more serious. So that's hopeful, at least for the Netherlands.
So
Maybe Jiska can explain a little bit more.
let me jump in just 1 second and just say that one thing I've observed about churches in the U.S. context, that it's a similar dynamic to what you're talking about when you talk about the overwhelming secularism around you. And that is when churches are, let's just call them, surrounded by a lot of local needs. So for example, the African-American church in the US, they begin to talk in terms of what we call sequentialism. The idea that, we first have to reach our neighborhood. That's where our needs are. Mm-hmm. That's our Jerusalem. Then we'll think about Samaria. Then we'll think about the ends of the earth. Mm-hmm. And that to me is a common theme with any church or denomination or whatever it might be that finds itself in a strong minority situation or a strong needs situation where there's a lot of local needs. So
yes,
yeah, we see that happening here. Yeah, we see that happening here as well. And even when we talk to churches, they say, yeah, but we are very mission minded. We take care of our neighborhood. Right. And that for me is not being mission minded, being a church where mission is the center and the heart of being church together. And for me, that is the end of the world, overseas mission and reaching the people who have no choice at this moment and not going to all the places where the gospel has already spread. And that is what is happening at the moment, that a lot of missionaries go to places where there are already so many Christians living because the gospel has already spread across the globe. So please let us all raise the awareness so they can focus on going to the places where the gospel is not available to everyone yet. And of course, it has challenges because those countries are often, it's not an option to just spread the gospel and share the gospel. It's not allowed by the government. So it's something that you have to do in a different way that you can do in the countries where you're free to share your faith. So it is challenging. But if you're not aware that there's still such a big part of the world where the gospel is not widely spread yet, then if you're looking into being mission-minded church, you're going to the same places where everybody else is going.
Yeah, Jiska, something that I will do when I'm working with churches, I will draw a distinction between the church in Jerusalem and the church in Antioch. And the church in Jerusalem, what a wonderful church. There's so many lessons that she can teach us, but she was slow, if not reticent, to make sense of the global cross-cultural work of missions. For the church in Jerusalem, the mission stopped in the neighborhood. In fact, it stopped in the Jewish neighborhood. So they were not only egocentric, they were ethnocentric. And I often say that they didn't do Acts 1:8, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the ends of the earth. And so God did Acts 8:1. He brings persecution and he disperses them. But even then they were slow to share the gospel. But this all changes at Antioch, as we know, and they take the gospel to the nations. So I like to pose a question. Are you going to be like the church in Jerusalem? Is the mission going to stop where you live? Or are you going to extend the gospel to the ends of the earth? And the thing about Antioch is they were active in their community. It was a socioeconomically, ethnically diverse church, but it didn't stop there. And so I really love the work that you're doing. I think another distinction is we're talking about pre-Christian cultures, not post-Christian cultures. Now, granted, the migration of people and everything else, there are places that were once reached that are now unreached. But when we talk about people groups, cultures, we're talking about pre-Christian, not post-Christian. So by all means, we should be doing ministry among our post-Christian neighborhoods and all those things. But we are talking about cultures that are pre-Christian. So I love the no choice metaphor. I love it.
Yeah, I would wonder I mean, I worked in Europe, different part of Europe, but came and went through many countries in Europe for a long time. Would you say that the evangelical movement in the Netherlands, now you talked, when you first started to talk, you talked about how there's some things happening there in that church. Give us a flavor for how, what the size and scope is of the evangelical movement in the Netherlands today.
Well, for me,
Maybe
I would
Jiska.
say it's difficult to give numbers and to name numbers because things are changing rapidly. And what we do see in also the evangelical churches is that a lot of people are leaving churches, especially the younger generations. For them, it's not really something that adds to their faith to be part of a church when they're not heard. So we see that the younger generation is leaving churches. So how can you make sure that they come back to churches? And that is something that from our organization, Missie Nederland, we're now focusing on. We just created a new network, and we translated the book that was written by actually people from the United States. It's called Growing Young. And we translated it, and now it's Together Young, for them to be part of churches again, and to help churches to be a church with all generations. And we see that also in the evangelical churches, but we see it all over the Netherlands that, more people are leaving churches than they are coming to join churches.
Well, let me add to that. What I see in the Netherlands is that in some way, new churches are planted in the Netherlands, and what I see is that these churches are mostly from a Reformed background. These churches, the Reformed Church, lost their members about 50, 60 years ago, and they are more aware of the fact that new churches need to be planted. So from Protestant churches in the Netherlands, churches are built in larger areas, in urban areas. The evangelical church is a little bit slower and needs to add new initiatives to plant also new churches in the Netherlands. Some mega churches grow large numbers, but it's more like it's a certain more circulation of the saints. So churches are growing bigger. I think what the evangelical church needs to learn also in the Netherlands is to grow small to be big. You know, it means that we need to plant a lot smaller churches that are able to reach out to the neighborhood and who are next to the people who are not Christian. Instead of growing larger churches, we're not able to make that jump to the culture. So that's what I see.
Yeah, and you also see that people who are leaving churches are not leaving the faith. They're not Christians anymore. It's just that they don't find what they need in the church. So the question is, what is church nowadays? Because for some people, they have more faith sharing with their colleagues, and that's their community where they share their faith, and they don't go to church anymore. So it's also a change of what people are looking for in their lives. And some people don't find it in church anymore.
Like I said earlier, the church is reinventing itself. So they try to be church in new ways. So the way that church was done in the past doesn't work anymore in Dutch society. So they try to renew the church so that they're able to connect again to the culture surrounding the church. So that's exciting to see what's happening. But still, it's hard work, and we need the Spirit of God for a revival of the church in the Netherlands.
Amen.
And not only in the Netherlands, it's also in the rest of the Western Europe.
That's right. We need a visitation from the Spirit. There is no doubt about it. I've been saying this for some time now, but we need a new Pentecost. The Great Commission is not fulfilled yet. And we know that in Acts 1:8, the Spirit was given that the gospel might spread to the ends of the earth. And the fact that that hasn't happened, that power is available to us today. And I think when we look at Pentecost, we shouldn't look at it as some distant, unrepeatable event. Now, God is sovereign. He moves suddenly. We can't control the Spirit, but we should be praying for a new move of the Spirit. I'm going to go off script here just a little bit. Ted, you had some questions in relation to Ukraine. Obviously, there's been an influx of Ukrainian refugees all throughout the world, but in particular, strong pockets of them in Western Europe. So Ted, I'm going to kick this over to you and you can ask them.
Yeah, for sure. The refugee stream ministry story is huge among Missie Nexus member agencies. We have a number of them that are working in Ukraine and Poland, other kind of border countries to the conflict. I'd be curious to know if it's influencing the church in the Netherlands, and if so, how much, and what your involvement is with the situation in Ukraine right now.
Yeah, we also have within our network mission organizations who are also working in the Ukraine and the countries surrounding that. And we see churches inviting refugees in and taking care of them. We see churches reaching out, and people, when the war started, a lot of churches actually immediately wanted to do something and say, we're also part of Europe, so this is close to our own country, so we have to help out. And they started collecting goods and stuff to send over there. But then, of course, we try to get something a bit more streamlined, saying, okay, what help is actually needed? Because sometimes you have a good initiative, but it doesn't really answer what their needs are. So we are working with organizations in our network to streamline that. And mainly just raising money is something that you're able to do, and make sure that through those organizations, it comes to the right projects where the need is the highest. So people are helping. That's something I would say for sure. You do see that, of course, it started the beginning of the year, February, March, a lot of messages around, in the media as well. But now you see that it's been continuing. So it's not new news anymore. So you also see sometimes at the evening news, there's no story about Ukraine anymore. And you also see that happening in churches. Like, okay, we've been helping out, but there's so much we can do. And now we move on to the next. So that is something that, it's disturbing, but it's how it is.
I assume that your organization is somehow related to the European Evangelical Alliance. Is that correct?
True.
Yeah, so we've had a number of Missie Nexus events with their leadership talking about what kind of responses might be needed there. So did you have a question, Matthew?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, brother.
I was just going to say, if we listening to this podcast here, some of us in North America, not all for sure, but how can we be praying for you and what you're trying to do with this No Choice Network?
Maybe I can add a prayer point. I think that you could pray for new vision of the church. That adds to what I said earlier. I would like to see a renewal of the church, a reinvented church that is able to connect not only to the local culture, but also to the culture globally, to reach out to unreached people groups. So the mission 1:8, the Acts 1:8, not only in your neighborhood, but also the nations, like Matthew says all the time. So pray for that local churches will stand up. Not only mission organizations, but local churches, because God works through local churches. And that the best people from those churches are touched by the Spirit to step out and say, okay, I want to do missions in some way in my neighborhood or in the world.
Well, I'll tell you, Haije, I'll make a deal with you. I'll pray that for the Netherlands if you pray that for the US and Canada, because I would just say that even though probably from your perspective, it seems like our churches are pretty engaged. My view is we are not even scratching the surface of what the church could be doing globally. So let's pray for that, for both for all these nations, because it's a huge need.
Yeah.
True. And
So-
I would also say pray that no choice is not only a Dutch thing, but that it will spread also around the globe, and that all other countries, I'm going to a conference in October, Hope for Europe, and there I will also meet with other leaders of mission agencies, mission organizations, networks around Europe, and share with them about this network, and that it can spread also like that in the rest of the world. So we can raise even more awareness. So that is something that I would definitely pray for. That it's not a Dutch network, but it's a global network of
All
no
right.
choice movement.
So we're going to pray for each other. I think that's obvious here. Last time we spoke, Jiska and Haije, prior to this recording, I had 2 Corinthians 5:14 pop into my head. And I think it's relevant to share right now. It's Paul saying, the love of Christ compels me because Christ died for me. I have no choice. One translation says, but to testify of the gospel and live for him. He can't help himself. And it reminded me of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the Chronicles of Narnia, C.S. Lewis. The beavers are talking to the Pevensey children about Aslan, and they'd never seen him before. They'd never heard of him before. But when Mrs. Beaver told them about Aslan, it says something on the inside of the children jumped, so that they heard the name Aslan and their insides jumped. And I've thought, if we're going to care about the plight of the unreached, if we're going to care about those who have no choice, then at the name of Jesus, our insides need to jump. And that goes back to what Haije said, that there must be a renewal in the church. We have to be amazed and filled with wonder over Jesus and what he's done for us, and then we'll care about the unreached. So I love that. The love of Christ leaves me with no choice. So there's no choice for those who haven't heard, but for those who have heard and believed, they should say, I have no choice. I can't help myself. I don't have to do this. I get to do this.
True.
So we are cheering you guys on. We just want you to know that if there's any way we can partner in the days ahead. I know that the 50th anniversary of Mission 18 is, I'm not saying that right, Mission Nederland is coming up, but I speak for 1615, and I know Missio as well. We want to serve and support, and I'm sure it's mutual. So just know we're cheering you on.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you very much.
Hey, we're at that time in the program, Ted, where we talk about something you like.
All right. Well, these two are going to laugh at me on the call when I tell you what I like. But before I roll it out, let me ask Haije. Haije, do you carry a purse with you when you're out in town?
Most of the times, yes. Most of the times,
okay.
yes.
So-
Not all the time, but mostly, yes.
So I lived in Europe, for a number of years. And in Europe, men carry purses. In America, it's frowned upon, and very few men carry purses. And it's considered effeminate. And I am on a mission to change that, because one of the things that I like, Matthew, is I like carrying a purse. And let me show you what I carry.
Oh, yeah. You have to what's a purse in your case?
So this
A
is
man
my
bag.
purse.
Oh, man. Yeah.
All
In
right.
Spain, I did. In the Netherlands, it's not so common. But in
No, it's
Spain,
not,
yeah,
okay.
a lot of the men carried the purse.
Well, in Bosnia, we used to carry these little leather purses, probably similar to what they carried in Spain, the little handle across the top.
These ones.
Yeah, just kind of smallish. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I can carry my Surface Go computer inside my little purse, and I got my wireless hotspot in there, my wallet. Check it out. Emergency chocolate if I need that. Everything I need right here in this little bag. And so something I like very much, and I would encourage you to consider doing too, Matthew, is get yourself a purse.
Well, I may take you up on it. My briefcase is sitting next to me and it's starting to hurt my back.
Oh,
I'll tell you that. I need something smaller, lighter, easier to get around.
Well, this is little Topo Designs. Look at this. It's got a little piece of, you put this right around your waist if you want to do that and carry it that way instead of, it's highly functional. So that's something I like today, Matthew.
All right, great. Well, Haije, Jiska, Thank you so much for being with us, and to our listening audience, viewing audience, see you next time.
Before you go, would you visit our hosts' websites? There you will find a wealth of interesting and challenging information about the state of the Great Commission. They are 1615.org and missionexus.org. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss one. Mission Matters is presented through a partnership between 1615 Missions Coaching and Missionexus.